Strange Ride is brought to you commercial-free through the generous support of our patrons. Visit strangerideshow.com and click on Donate to help keep the history of the weird on the digital airwaves.
Let me take you back to the faraway time of 2018. One of my favorite YouTubers at the time, Ralph the Movie Maker, posted a new video. He always makes videos about strange movies, and this one didn't seem any different. The thumbnail is a picture of an adorable golden retriever with red text above his head proudly displaying the title, Love on a Leash. He even warns me at the beginning of the video that this movie is different, special even. He says, now you have to prepare yourselves for this experience. And thinking I know best, I brushed off his warnings and proceeded to watch his video. I'm not sure that anything could have prepared me for what I had seen. It was so bad, but the video was endlessly entertaining, and I'm still to this day not sure how many times I've rewatched that video. Now cut to the current day. I'm trying to think of something special to do for this podcast for Valentine's Day, and what could be more special than talking about the most special romance movie that was ever made? Having watched Ralph's video so many times, I thought I could handle watching the actual movie. It can't be that bad, can it? Well, Strange Riders, let me tell you that Love on a Leash is one of the best horrible movies you could ever watch, and yet it will drain you and leave you feeling exhausted and confused. Today, I will be teaching you about a movie that everyone should know about, but no one should watch. Welcome to Strange Ride, where I tell the smartest man I know the weirdest things I know. My name is Savannah Barrett, and I will be your guide today, but you're not the only ones going on this ride. I have Evangeline Olsen with me.
Hello.
And Neil Sigmund.
I am no longer the same after watching the first 7 minutes of this film.
Yeah, we granted Neil the specific honor of only watching the first 7 minutes of the movie and then not letting him watch anything else about it, so I could tell him about it. And then, of course, we have the smartest man I know, Rob C. Thompson of Occult Confessions fame.
Now, you can't see this, but in order to prepare for the episode, Savannah has leashed all three of us. So that's a little special treat for all you there listening at home on Valentine's Day.
I mean, it is called Love on a Leash.
And here we are.
Podcast on
so
a Leash.
So you love us.
Yeah.
Is this how you show us your love, Savannah?
Yeah,
That's
it's
how
the
I show
leashes.
everything my love is
The
put
leash
in.
by leashing. The leash is the love language.
And also...
Savannah's got all these Baldur's Gate characters leashed in her room.
Don't you dare. I hate that. Stop, please. There is like a dog collar that you can find, like, and you can make one of the characters wear it, and I hate it.
Oh.
I don't do it, but people online always put my favorite character in the dog collar, and I fucking hate it. Stop, you cretins. Stop putting a Starion in the dog collar.
I do think it's worth noting that Evangeline here did play a dog woman in our Halloween show who very nearly got leashed.
Oh, shoot. Yeah, you're right.
You have actually been on a leash.
I didn't end up having the leash.
You did a time or two, but only in rehearsal.
Yeah. It only got to rehearsal and we're like,
the leash wasn't my idea. It was your idea, and I talked you out of it because it was a bad idea.
And I think this is as good a time as any to talk about this leash because, you see, we were looking for something to constrain the werewolf, right, the character, and we needed a leash. So I went on Amazon and I searched for a leash for people. And what I received from Amazon, this is from a major corporation, friends, was a product made for man boys. Now...
Yup.
Didn't say man
I
voice.
am fully on board with any man who wants to be leashed, but I draw the line at boys, friends. I don't see how Amazon could conceivably be selling the same leash to both men and boys.
Anyway,
We bought it for a woman, for a grown woman. Is what that's the conclusion. Go ahead.
Rob will be taking, well, actually, this is going to be not a two-parter, but a tag-teamed episode where I will hand the reins over to Rob for a little bit in the middle of the episode.
Yeah, this is special. It's our first tag team episode. We won't give away what I'm talking about.
Oh, no, not yet. Not yet. Let me, I guess, get into... Well, let me get into this episode, I guess. It's time to start.
We got to pledge it out, man.
Oh, my God. I didn't write down my pledge. I solemnly commit myself to keep my hands, arms, feet, and legs inside the vehicle at all times while on this strange ride. Neil
just nodded vigorously.
I will follow the park rules.
Oh, thank you. Good. That's what we need. You just need to rubber stamp it at the end if you don't know the actual
Which
pledge.
means you have to be on the leash.
Yeah, we're all leashed. We're good.
Yeah. We're
Safe.
following the rules.
This is the safest we've ever been.
The collar's just a wee bit tighter.
Yeah, we choke up on Neil a little bit.
I already hate this episode. This was my idea to do this episode.
Right, now your grandma's listening.
Oh my God. Okay. What is Love on a Leash about, you ask? Well, dear writer, let me tell you. A dog wants to become a human man, but is told by a magical water pond that the only way that he'll become a human is if he can get a human woman to fall in love with him. He is then adopted by Lisa, who is fed up with men and swears off dating. The two then form a bond that most movies wouldn't dare replicate, and because of their love, the dog turns into a human man, but only at night or when the sun is behind clouds.
Yes. And I do want to clarify that it isn't the whole pond. It's just the corner of the pond. So I have taken to calling it a water feature. I believe the water feature is the magical part of the pond.
Wait, but he calls it water pond.
I know, but it bubbles only in one corner.
Okay, but you're right. But I also wouldn't consider the rest of it a pond. I would consider it a lake.
It's a home for
really
ducks.
Big.
For two ducks.
We're getting already distracted. The audience has no idea.
It's a water feature. It is a magical water feature, and he's already a dog, but the water feature tells him how to become a person. Yes?
Yes.
Yes.
Hold on. We're going to get into the plot. I'm going to describe the entire plot for you, so you do not have to watch this movie like Rob and I did.
Yes.
And I went home and watched it again so I could better describe it to you. So I have now seen this movie fully twice.
She's taken one for the team.
I'm sorry, Savannah.
Thank you. You should be thankful to me, strange writers. So before I regale you with the plot of this art piece, I'd like to give you a little bit of the history. Now, it is actually very difficult to find anything about the history of this movie because almost everyone who had anything to do with the movie refuses to talk about it. From what I've seen, it seems like the only person that's willing to talk about the movie and the making of it is Stephen Kramer Glickman, the man who voices the dog. So Ralph the Movie Maker actually did an interview with him a few years ago, that was a few years ago, and then a few years after posting his original Love on a Leash video. It's a really, really amazing listen, so you should definitely check that out. And then also check out Ralph's video because he actually has like visuals and stuff from the movie, and I think Ralph is very funny. I just wanted to point out that I recognized Stephen Kramer Glickman as soon as I saw his face in that Ralph interview because he plays fucking Gustavo on Big Time Rush, which was a show that I was obsessed with when I was a kid. I see Bree's face. Bree, we have people in the audience watching us at the moment, and Bree's face is like, yes, I understand. Gustavo voices this dog.
That's insane.
Okay, we're in the big theater today, friends. You may hear a slightly different acoustic experience, but still a pleasant one. We're in the big theater doing the show. Yeah, well, it looks all right to me.
Yeah, so if you know Big Time Rush, you know Gustavo. Basically, Big Time Rush is about a boy band, and this guy who is named Gustavo is like their manager and like plucks them out of Canada to become like rock stars. It was a really funny show when I was a kid, at least. So it was really interesting to see that this is what Gustavo was up to before Big Time Rush. Stephen Kramer Glickman was working as a doorman/phone operator at the Comedy Store on Sunset Boulevard, which is not a store that sells comedy. It is a comedy club, which is sort of the same thing.
Yeah, it does sell comedy in a way. You pay and you come in.
But you can't just take comedy off the shelf and buy it,
no,
which is
only.
what the name implies.
Yeah.
Anyway, those liars. So he is approached by comedian Ari Shaffir and asked if he would be interested in doing voice work for this animated movie that he wasn't able to work on. Glickman at the time said that he wasn't turning down any roles, so he said he would do it. And a few days later, a woman by the name of Jennifer Ten shows up to his office where he answers the phone for the Comedy Store with 2 plastic grocery bags, one filled with 3 cantaloupes, the other filled with homemade wontons, and says, "This is what I can pay you to do this movie."
What?
Can you do it? And he says, "Yep, sounds great." And proceeds to do the movie.
Why? Why?
Why would you
I'm
accept,
so
like, that's a free
confused.
lunch, don't get me wrong, I'm down. I'm very food motivated, much like the dog.
A whole movie, though? That's how motivated you are?
That's a little,
You're wasting money.
You're
You
wasting
can't,
money.
you know,
Like,
you can't get good food.
I mean, you're not really wasting money because she paid for it.
Yeah, she made the wontons.
And where did she procure said money to make the film?
So I don't know if I should say this now or wait. I guess I will say this now. Now, I couldn't find anything to, like, validify these comments or whatever, but I believe him. Supposedly, where she got the money to make this film, and I tried looking it up, and I couldn't find a budget, although maybe I didn't look hard enough, but she lives in China. She's from China, and she convinced this church in China that she would make them a movie about God. And, like,
it was a Christian church.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that, like, Jesus' love saves all, and, like, through Jesus we can be happy and find love. That is not the movie that she delivered.
No, not at all. Not even remotely.
Not even remotely.
It's a magical water feature. That's the deity here.
And I think she did get in some trouble, but I obviously didn't get in a, like, arrested trouble or anything.
I feel like that's the opposite of what she said she would do, though. Like, almost completely.
Well, the characters pray quite a few times in the movie, and then they're also like, the one mom is like, swear to God that you will do this, and the girl is like, no, never.
There's references, that's true, but it's mostly about magical water features.
And there was that one shot of Mother Mary statue that happened too. So Jesus is there.
In the background,
in a sense.
In a very loose
he's
sense.
Watching judgingly.
Right.
That is supposedly how she got the movie to make this, money to make this movie. And
well, if she made a, like, handshake agreement with them, then there would be no way for them to file any legal action against her.
Then that's probably what happened. She made, like, handshake agreements with everyone. There were no contracts with this movie whatsoever. So Glickman is like, yep, I'll do it. And they apparently record all of his lines for the movie right then and there in the office. And then she leaves. And he's like, oh, I guess that was the end of it. And he said, I ate the cantaloupes. And that was the end. So then a couple months later, he's auditioned to be Shrek in the Broadway musical for Shrek. And he got the role to do it in the workshops and stuff. So he wasn't the original Shrek on Broadway, but he did, like, sort of originate the part while they were workshopping it. And he was DreamWorks was moving him to New York City, and literally 5 days before he's moving, he hasn't heard from this lady in months, and he only met her that one time where she gave him cantaloupes and then left after recording some voice lines. And he gets a call from her being like, okay, the movie is done, but all the lines are wrong, so I need you to come in and re-record your lines, but also I have no money, so I can't pay you. And he's like, I'm literally moving across the country, I cannot do this. And she, like, begs him, and he's like, no, I'm sorry. And then the editor, who doesn't have a name because they have made sure that their name cannot be attached to this movie at all, also calls him and starts begging him, and is like, please come do this. Like, I'm sorry that we can't pay you, but you have to come do this movie. Like, you have to come do this voice. And so he drives down to Redondo Beach to record his voice lines over the course of 2 days.
This guy is very
friendly.
Yeah.
Desperate.
A nice guy.
Yeah.
Very.
He seems like a nice guy. Gustavo was not a nice guy on Big Time Rush. He was arguably one of the worst characters, but I still liked Gustavo. He was a funny kind of mean. But anyway, so he is more than just his Big Time Rush character. I mean, but
apparently,
that's all I see
he's
him
also
as
a dog.
is the Big Time Rush character. Because the movie was finished, besides his lines, he was in a very unique position where he was actually able to see and watch the movie and essentially react in real time as he's recording his lines to the movie, which I believe has something to do with his performance in the movie. What did Stephen Kramer Glickman see when he went to re-record his lines over those 2 days? Well, Rob, would you like to take over from here, like, as an appetizer to the plot of the movie?
He saw a woman have sex with a dog, Savannah.
Yes.
In large part.
Essentially. However, you don't ever actually see the woman sleep with the dog, because the dog does become a human at one point.
It is heavy. Okay, so let me get into Let me explain a few
Rob and I
plot
did
points.
not watch a movie together where we watched a woman have sex with a real,
No.
literal dog.
No, I'll get to that when that does. But
I just want to make that very clear.
But it's following a cultural standard here that I want to establish. But let's talk about a little bit about how this movie heavily trades on the fantasy of zoophilia, which is the term of art for bestiality. People prefer zoophilia these days. We may have some zoophiliacs out there listening. I'm being sensitive to your needs, friends.
Yeah, okay.
He's just a dog who's been reincarnated as a man, right?
Yes. So I was under the impression when I was watching Ralph's video and like watching the movie that this was a man, much like Beauty and the Beast, that was turned into a dog as punishment. However, that is not the case. He was a man in a previous life who was reincarnated into a dog as a punishment,
Yes.
but lived a whole life as a man,
And
died,
really
and
liked
was
women.
born as a dog,
Correct.
but remembered that he was a human.
And so we begin the movie just following a dog who seems to have no relation to anyone but really wants to look at women.
Yes.
We have a horny dog wandering around fantasizing about banging women.
Yes, and he's literally like the first line of the movie is, "Where are the ladies at?"
Right.
I'm pretty sure he even goes like, "No girls, no fun, man. No girls, no fun."
So
there's so many good quotes in this movie.
And we're toggling between images of a golden retriever and images of women in various outfits in the summer heat.
and birds flying around.
Yeah, naturally.
Without music or sound.
Wait,
The movie
what does
is
the birds have to do with it?
I don't know. There's
nothing.
just a
I
lot
mean,
of birds flying around.
Birds and the bees in the sycamore trees. So the imagery already is suggesting dog and woman, dog and woman, dog woman, and the voiceover is saying dog sexually attracted to women.
Yes.
Yeah.
Can't deny this.
He even like watches this couple make out, and he was like, "I used to be way hotter than that guy. She should be like making out with me." Essentially.
Then we switch to our protagonist, who has an attractive black friend, and her attractive black friend says, "Oh, this dog has really loving eyes," and gets way up into the dog's face for the second time, teasing
I
us.
don't even think she said loving. It was like hot.
Yeah.
She was like,
It
I
was a
want to fuck
comment
this
you
dog.
wouldn't make about a dog.
No.
You wouldn't meet a dog on the street and say, "That dog."
Has sexy eyes. It's essentially what
Yes.
she said.
Yes.
I just can't remember the actual word, but it wasn't loving. It was like sexy.
Oh.
Then after that, the woman, after a series of failed dates and like terrible experiences with men, says to her dog, holding his face close to hers, that she feels she's just better off with him. Now, the context is important there. She's not saying, "I really love you, dog." She's saying, "I don't like men anymore. I like you instead."
Yep. Yeah.
Yet again, teasing the fantasy without it actually happening. As a man, when the dog becomes a man, which only happens at night, Savannah will get into all the
Or
details
when
here.
the clouds are blocking the sun. That's a very important detail.
At a climactic moment that again is handled very poorly, because the climax takes place in a montage that involves a 2-second clip of the two of them getting married. But immediately before the pair get married, we see her leash him, the human man,
Yes.
as if she is fantasizing about her human man being a dog, and then they get married.
Yeah.
So the marriage is precipitated, visually anyway, by her fantasizing about her man as a dog.
Oh, she leashes him?
Yes, she puts
As
a
a
leash on him.
human?
As a human.
A Chinese woman then prompts her to have wild sex, which she attempts to have with him in order to produce children, apparently.
Yes.
But she attempts to have that with the dog man, as a man, he's a man, not a dog, in the car, and then she continues to try to have sex with him out into the woods. She wants to have sex outdoors, is what I'm trying to say,
Yeah.
with her dog man. So this, I think, is also coded with animalistic activity. But most oddly, no, I think I've already got to most odd, but let me just do one more example of how the fantasy of zoophilia undergirds this. She's very preoccupied with getting him out of the house during the day. And in the penultimate scene, she's willing to risk him turning into a dog in front of apparently people she wants a job from, in order to just have him out, right? So she really likes to play at the line of him being dog and being man. There's no good reason why she should want to get him out during the day and risk this happening in front of this employer.
No.
And yet she does it.
Yeah, she does. I feel like the last moral that the movie tries to tell you is that she was just being selfish and not accepting him for who he was.
As a dog man.
Yes.
And yet that seems to be what she wants all along.
Yes.
Is a dog man.
But she cries about it a lot, being like, I don't want you to be a dog during the day.
Until she misses her dog man. And yet she wants her man to wear a leash.
Why just during the day?
That's when he's a dog.
That's when he's a dog.
That's how the magic
when the
works.
sun is
Don't
out.
ask me. Ask the water feature.
Yeah, ask the water pond.
It's like a werewolf, but
He is like
Sort
a
of,
werewolf,
yeah.
but it's like
She's
reversed.
a reverse werewolf. According to scholar Joanna Burke, and we need to talk then about the fantasy of sex with a dog or an animal of any kind. Joanna Burke says 99% of pornographic depictions of bestiality involve sex between a woman and an animal. So I don't think it's any accident that this is the plot of this story. In 1972, Dogorama featured the prostitute Linda Lovelace having sex with a short-haired tan dog named Norman. Lovelace went on to become an international celebrity after she appeared in a little movie called Deep Throat, but both films featured Lovelace performing sex acts under threat of violence. I'm sorry, I need to say, trigger warning, this is some scary stuff for just a paragraph, though, and then we'll move on to the lighter mythological fantasy stuff. But this is not a fantasy. The most famous instance of this is Linda Lovelace in Dogorama, from what I understand in my research.
Like actually sleeping with the dog.
And there was more or less a gun to her head. You couldn't see the gun, I don't think. I didn't watch this film, so I can't say. I'm sorry I didn't do my full research, but I think you all can forgive me.
I think so.
But I imagine that her pimp essentially was off screen holding a weapon, telling her, you're going to do this. So the idea for the non-consensual sex act did not occur to her pimp Chuck Traynor or film producer Robert Wolfe out of nowhere. It was actually part of a culture of bestiality operating in a kind of sexual underground in the 1970s. Traynor had mused over taking Lovelace to Juarez in Mexico, where women were strapped to a contraption and forced to have sex with donkeys. Also a frequent visitor to the Playboy Mansion after her rise to fame, Lovelace recalled Hugh Hefner describing his failed attempts to get a girl and a dog together.
What?
This is from Linda Lovelace herself. So I'm not going to dig into this any further. I guess I'm just sort of going to leave this with you all because I want to move on to the fantasy of the animal and sex. But actual animals and sex were a thing in the 70s. They were a component of pornographic culture. Albeit in a very unhealthy way. And I suppose we can imagine healthier ways when we remove guns and things. It's still all a little strange. I read, the reading I did for this was quite bizarre. I read very moralistic articles that accused, for example, Tom Jones of encouraging cunnilingus with a cat in his song, What's New, Pussycat? Whoa, whoa, whoa. Whoa, whoa. Because he does talk about the pussycat's lips. But come on. That's ridiculous. That's not what that song is about. And then I read articles that were sort of like trying to be this uber woke about it and create space for zoophiles and arguing that it's not necessarily morally questionable or any of this. I mean, the basic premise against literal, and we're going to move away from literal sex with animals in just a moment, is that the animal can't consent, right? But the implication there is that I'm just going to try to trace the woke argument. And this is not liberal. Democrats are not making this argument. This will not be part of the Biden campaign. Like if you're trying to just be uber, sex positive, maybe. And I am very sex positive. But maybe I do get a little skeevy.
I
don't think like the blue hair, pink hair, like wokey person would defend.
They're not woke enough. So here's the thing, Neil. It's the implication when the reason that we look down on bestiality, says the scholars who discuss this, is that we think of the animal as lower than the human. But if we reconceptualized it as that the human is just an animal themselves, then we're not necessarily undertaking. You see, you have to rethink the whole system. I don't want to follow this through anymore because it's already making me feel weird to explain it, but
yes.
do you see the argument, how it's being made?
I understand, but also, like, humans can talk to one another. You can't talk to your dog. You can't.
Dr. Doolittle could.
You can talk to your
So
dog, but
Dr.
the dog just like, I like your funny words, Magic Man.
Exactly. You give me food.
Rex Harrison could talk with the animals, walk with the animals.
Dr. Doolittle is the only person allowed to have sex with an animal because he can talk to them.
Prohibitions
That's
against
bold.
bestiality are very Old Testament. Speaking of, this is why this church was so upset, I imagine. Leviticus and Deuteronomy called the act a defiling, a confusion, and an affront to the dignity of man. The idea is that the animal lowers, as I'm saying, the status of the human because of its lower status. But the fantasy, which wasn't actually a fantasy for Lovelace or the women in Juarez, it was a literal reality. But in this movie, we're not dealing with a literal case of a woman filming another woman having sex with a dog. But she's playing, as I think I've amply demonstrated, at the fantasy of a woman having sex with a dog. The fantasy is something else entirely. Significantly, these acts of bestiality were a marginal part of the pornographic and underground sexual culture of the 70s. They weren't central to it. The problem of the animal's lower status is also a uniquely Judeo-Christian issue that requires us to view the non-human animal world as inferior. But what if the non-human animal world isn't inferior?
That's also like a weird argument because I would argue it's just they're just not the same.
Just
like
don't
humans
mix.
And animals are not the same.
Interspecies sex is a thing, though. It does happen.
We did not evolve to be attracted to a horse.
Well, that's all we need to say about that. I'm good. I'm good with
Let's
that.
skip the
We can
Boeing
move on.
Boeing story.
In Greco-Roman tradition, it was always possible that the animal you were having sex with might be a god, or perhaps a human transmuted by the gods into an animal shape. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that Judeo-Christianity makes the fantasy more taboo, whereas it wasn't always taboo. The fantasy. The reality, I'm with you all, it is weird, and I'm picking on this movie in part because it does trade on this fantasy.
Yes.
Okay.
I guess what I was saying with the inferior thing is like they're not saying it's wrong to have sex with animals because you shouldn't have sex with something that can't consent. They're saying it will make you worse.
Yes.
It'll make you seem
It's
grosser.
a confusion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
in a Judeo-Christian context.
That feels problematic to me
But
as
then
well. But
we would maybe say that the consent issue is still a problem.
oh, I would say 100%.
And the fantasy
I will
is-
stand on that hill. You
Okay.
stand on the hill with the zoophiles, and I'll stand over here on the hill not with them.
I do not consent to be placed on the hill with the zoophiles, although I'm so glad you're listening. Let's consider Europa and Pasiphae, looking at Greek mythology. Europa was a beautiful ancient queen, and Zeus fell in love with her. He transformed himself into a gorgeous white bull, and Europa, in turn, became enamored of the bull. She climbed up on its back and rode it across the ocean to Crete, where Zeus revealed himself to her as a god, and they sexed and sexed.
She rode the bull across the ocean.
Rode the bull across the ocean.
So it swam? I didn't
Yes.
think that they were particularly good swimmers.
It's a god bull.
So I guess that would make a little bit more sense. But
There you go.
if I became enamored with a bull, I probably wouldn't be like, to the ocean.
But Pasiphae did, and it's good that she did, because he gifted her with a necklace, a javelin, the automaton Talos,
Oh.
and she became the queen of Crete.
And sex.
Yes.
Wow.
But
So-
as a bull or as Zeus?
The guy, it's not really clear. That really depends on who you talk to, but I think riding the bull across the ocean feels like it's telling us something. But apparently he revealed himself to her in Crete, so maybe the sex happened then. Maybe it happened along the way. It was like a cruise. I want to say one more time. She was attracted to the bull, though, and that's okay. She was rewarded for it because the bull was actually a god.
Okay.
By contrast, Pasiphae had sex with a bull. It didn't go so well for her. King Minos was required to sacrifice a bull to Poseidon, god of the ocean, but one year, the bull he had in mind for sacrifice turned out to be just too beautiful to be sacrificed, and so he sacrificed an uglier bull. And Poseidon found out. And Poseidon was like, whoa, you shouldn't give me your ugly bull. So he cursed Minos' wife Pasiphae to fall in love with the bull. She had her court inventor Daedalus, famous for creating the maze of the Minotaur, construct a contraption for her to have sex with the bull, and the offspring of that pairing was the Minotaur, who terrorized Athens by requiring a sacrifice of 7 youths and 7 maidens each year until Theseus came and killed it.
Oh, I did not know that.
It's a true story. Daedalus then all goes on to create the wings to escape. He's imprisoned with his son Icarus, and so Daedalus is in a variety of myths. But
so the Minotaur is not like an actual, just like a mythical creature. It's just
random. No, it was the child of Pasiphae and a literal bull. So just let me say one more time.
That one's a little interesting though, because it's not like she chose to fall in love.
She was cursed.
Yeah,
she was cursed to fall in love with it. Okay.
It was a part of her humiliation to have sex with the bull. She wanted to have sex with the bull. But it was a literal bull. That's the other thing. So there's 2 components to this. 2 women become attracted to 2 different bulls with 2 very different outcomes. One becomes a queen and gets nifty gifts. The other gives birth to a mass-murdering monster. The difference hinges around, as we're saying, 2 significant differences between Europa and Pasiphae. Europa, number 1, chose to mount the bull because she was attracted to the bull, even though the bull was actually a god. Those are the 2 points. The bull isn't actually a bull, and she chooses to have sex with the bull. Pasiphae was cursed, by contrast, to desire the bull, who was just a damn bull, and no kind of magical thing at all. Do you see the core differences?
Yes.
Consider for comparison the story of Leda and the Swan. There's a long-running debate as to whether Leda was raped by Zeus in the form of a swan or whether she willingly partnered with him. That debate goes through like all of the history of like Renaissance art. You'll see Leda sometimes clearly seduced and sexually attracted to the swan, and in other instances it seems more like she's being attacked by the swan. Why is this unclear? Ovid doesn't imply anything forced. Going to literature, in William Butler Yeats' poem, though, he leans harder on her being assaulted. The reason I want to say is that Leda's children by the coupling include Castor, Pollux, Clytemnestra, and Helen. Helen is the most beautiful woman in the world, but she's also the cause of the great cataclysmic war in Troy that ultimately destroys the city. Helen of Troy is the reason we have the war in the first place. So is Helen a monster, or is she a wonderful, beautiful thing? She's both. See what I mean?
Yes.
The swan is not actually a swan, which is why Leda's children are not literal monsters, but the fact that Helen is the cause of such strife echoes back to the moment of her conception, raising the question of whether it's consensual or not. Is it a blessing of Zeus, or is it a curse of Zeus? You see? Helen is beautiful and wonderful, but she's also the source of all this war. Is she a blessing or is she a curse? I think that whether Leda is raped or not comes back to how we parse what Helen is.
Oh.
But the children are never going to be monsters because the swan isn't really a swan. There's 2 components to have a really clear cursed situation. The woman must be forced, she's being humiliated, and the animal must actually be an animal.
Interesting.
Ultimately, the Greek tendency to confuse the concepts of rape and seduction means there is no final answer here. So when we read about rape in Greek culture, sometimes they mean seduce. She was seduced by God. She was raped by Dionysus. She was raped by Hermes. May mean she was seduced.
I didn't realize that.
I've read that, and it's strange, but it does change the way you read some of ancient Greek myth. But it could also mean it could go the other way. She was seduced by could mean forcibly. Yeah. Anyway, the principle holds. The fantasy is permissible, at least as far as the characters are concerned, if the animal is secretly a god and the sex is something the woman chooses. Let me give you another example. Moving forward into Rome, Lucius Apuleius, who we know well now, if you've listened to my Occult Confessions episode.
Go listen to Rob's episode.
The Cult of Isis.
The Cult of Isis on Occult Confessions. I am on that episode. It was very fun.
So we're going to see this function in just the exact same way now in his book, The Metamorphoses, also called The Golden Ass by Augustine. Lucius tells the story of a protagonist he names after himself who's obsessed with magic.
Yes, it's self-insert fan fiction, where he becomes a donkey and wants to have sex with women.
Inspired Shakespeare in Midsummer and apparently Pinocchio as well. One night, his girlfriend, who is the maidservant to a witch, helps him to secretly watch as the witch coats her body in ointment, transforms into an owl, and flies off. The girlfriend then grabs a box of ointment for Lucius, who similarly rubs himself down, but it turns out that it's the wrong ointment, and he turns into a jackass. This is the inspiration, as I'm saying, for these later stories, but the girlfriend tells him that if he eats roses, he'll become human again. However, he's stolen by dangerous thieves and doesn't have the opportunity to get near a rose bush after a long series of misadventures. One of the last of these misadventures involves two women in the fantasy of bestiality. Lucius finds himself under the care of a master who teaches him tricks, which is easy because Lucius isn't actually a donkey, but a guy who's been turned into a donkey and speaks perfect Latin. This master brings Lucius to a town where
Wait, does the donkey talk?
No, but he can understand perfect Latin.
Yes. Okay.
This master brings Lucius to a town where a witch woman asks for the opportunity to have sex with him. Of course. I'm going to quote at length here.
Wait, she asks.
The woman asks voluntarily. This is important. They're fortuned to be amongst the assembly a noble and rich matron that conceived much delight to behold me, and could find no remedy to her passions and disordinate appetite, but continually desired to have her pleasure with me, as Pasiphae had with the bull. I was readily prepared for the purpose, but nothing grieved me so much as to think how I should with my huge and great legs embrace so fair a matron, or how I should touch her fine, dainty, and silken skin with my hard hooves, or how it was possible to kiss her soft, pretty, and ruddy lips with my monstrous mouth and stony teeth, or how she, so young and tender, could be able to receive me. She eftsoons embraced my body round about, and had her pleasure with me. When night was passed with much joy and small sleep, the matron went before day to my keeper to bargain for another night.
Oh my God.
No.
This is so creepy.
When Lucius's master finds out how good he was at this, he wants to show the whole town his donkey's new trick, but he would not suffer the matron to abide such shame by reason of her dignity, and because they could find no other than would endeavour so great a reproach, at length they obtained for money a poor woman, which was condemned to be eaten by wild beasts, with whom I should openly have to do. So the rich matron can't demonstrate the skill in public because it would be embarrassing. So they get a prisoner, a woman who's been condemned for murder, to do this act with the donkey in public. Because how cool, says the donkey's master.
How cool.
So cool.
The poor woman in question was responsible for killing 3 people, including her sister-in-law and her husband, but before the punishment could be carried out, Lucius escaped. He was unwilling to involve himself in so tawdry an affair, and he ran to the beach where the goddess Isis herself gave him the means to return to his full humanity. Now let me get back to my theory here. Lucius the donkey will have sex with the rich matron, who is preserved from any public disapprobation. But he will not have sex with the criminal. He's a discerning donkey. What's interesting about this episode is the degree to which Lucius the author and Lucius the donkey don't judge the rich matron for her predilection. Aside from comparing her to Pasiphae, the narrative goes to great lengths to keep her from any real consequences of her actions. Consider the conditions I set up in my Greek example for when bestiality as a fantasy is allowed. The animal must not actually be an animal, and the sex must be a blessing rather than a curse. For both the rich matron and the criminal, Lucius the donkey is not actually a donkey but a man, and so he can be used for good interspecies sex of the consensual kind, but will not allow himself to be used for the bad kind that gives birth to monsters. He won't humiliate somebody, you see? Mm-hmm. He'll only do the blessing-style sex, and it's okay, because he's actually a guy. Why does Western culture fantasize about women having sex with animals? What's interesting is that, like Lucius, it can't really get its rocks off without 360 degrees of consent.
Okay.
Think about it. Not only must the woman willingly participate, but the non-human animal must have the intellectual capacity to fully appreciate the meaning of the act, because, again, the animal is not actually an animal. Mm-hmm. In our fantasies, we prefer that it be really a human who knows what's happening. I think we are skeeved out by an animal being an animal.
Yeah.
It troubles us.
Yeah.
I would say so. Yeah.
In Shakespeare's Midsummer, Titania is humiliated when she's cursed to fall in love with the donkey man, but since the donkey man is actually a man, the story resolves well for her and for him with no lingering consequences.
Yeah, but that's also the case for every single plot point in Midsummer. But also, isn't it just the head of the donkey? Nick Bottom only has the head of the donkey, like the body is still a human.
Shakespeare complicates it a bit, but it's the same idea.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, you're right, because it's not just a full animal. Mm-hmm. But Titania gets off, basically. There's no Pasiphae-style epic punishment for her, although she does lose through her humiliation, her contest with Oberon. And we can talk about the complexities of that, but that's
I'd rather not.
another day. Yeah, that's another day. The point is, the fantasy of sex with the animal is in the cultural imagination worthy of punishment, but the fantasy of sex as the animal is cool. You can't have sex with an animal. You can have sex as an animal. Do you see the difference?
Yes.
If you're people.
If you're people.
I'd argue that sex with a non-human animal in these fantasies is not sex with a non-human animal at all. It is sex between two humans expressing and connecting with the animal aspects of themselves. The Bloodhound Gang sang, "You and me, baby, ain't nothing but mammals. Let's do it like they do" on the Discovery Channel. And Nine Inch Nails went a little bit deeper with their lyrics. "I want to fuck you like an animal. I want to feel you from the inside. You bring me closer to God." The fantasy of sex with the human transformed into the donkey or the dog is about a connection with and a release of animal impulse. But that connection is also, as in the myths of Europa and Leda, a path to something profound and perhaps even divine. This is the deepest reading of Nine Inch Nails you're ever going to get. The non-human animal being closer to nature exists unencumbered by human misunderstanding and complexity. The simplicity of the dog or the donkey being closer to an uncorrupted form of nature as God first created them puts these animals literally closer to God. The donkey sees God much easier than we do. As for sex, the passion, the love, and desire captured by these various fantasy couplings between women and animals who aren't actually animals is then the deeper invocation of a state of being closer to the pure state of humanity as animality. Sex in this way is a kind of self-abasement to an animal state that loops back around to divinity. You go so low, you drop into the highest heights. I want to penetrate you, desecrate you, but it only works as a fantasy, not as reality. I want to fuck you like an animal, not as an animal. You bring me closer to God. Savannah, take it away.
But in the movie, the dog is actually a dog.
No,
Even
hang on. We're getting there in a second.
The human is the dog.
The dog is also the human. This is what allows the fantasy. And you see the woman, like I said at the beginning, wanting to have wild sex with him in the car and in the forest. This gets right back to what I'm trying to describe here. The movie's totally playing with the exact fantasy that Lucius Apuleius first laid out
Yes.
all these years ago.
Oh, definitely.
But I was right at that originally the dog was just a dog.
Well,
and
he was
then
a man who died, was reincarnated as a dog,
Yes.
and knew he used to be a man.
Yes.
Okay.
What is the implication that it's always women, though? Like,
In
it's
all
always
of
the
these?
man that gets turned into an animal, and then it's super cool that it has sex with a woman.
I would suggest to you that this has something to say about masculine and feminine nature. I mean, in Lucius Apuleius, it's about Lucius needing to connect with the divine feminine as a masculine entity. And this, I think, is consistently the story that we're told because there's a need. I mean, these stories are written by men, and so they're considering how their animal nature can be elevated through contact with a woman.
Okay.
You see what I mean?
Yeah. Okay.
We can do the darker reverse of that women are often associated with more animalistic passions historically. We don't think about that today, but witches, for example, were burned because we believed that they were closer to Satan. They were closer to Satan because they couldn't resist temptation.
Yes.
So
As all women know, it's impossible to resist temptation.
the reason that it's always women is the patriarchy, but the reason it's the patriarchy is either in a Lucius Apuleius context because Lucius is trying to elevate the divine feminine inside of himself through his connections with these women and honoring these women by not humiliating them but still having sex with them in animal form, or if we're thinking about the Greek myths, maybe it's an embarrassment of, not embarrassment, but it's the conceptualization of the woman as being weaker and more prone to temptation and therefore more inclined to kinky sex.
If that's what you can call it.
It's just super hot to have sex with a swan.
Okay. Okay, well, I guess it's time to actually talk about the plot of this movie. Where do I begin? This movie, I guess I'll just start at the beginning. Why don't I just start there? So I read online that, sorry, you can choose to stream this movie. I think at the moment only on Tubi. Like, we tried to stream it on Amazon and we couldn't, but we bought it.
We did.
We bought the DVD version.
This is our gift to you. Happy Valentine's Day.
Happy Valentine's Day. Because Jennifer Ten didn't make any actual contracts with any people on the movie, she did have a composer, but she didn't have any contracts or anything like that to prove that she owned the music. So the streaming services were like, do you own this music? She was like, yes. They said, prove it. And she said, I can't. And they said, well, take the music out or there will be no movie. And so the versions that you watch streaming have no music in them at all, except for this one scene that has David Bowie's China Girl in it.
Yes, very odd.
And that one was fine.
That song, it probably isn't. I'm sure they're violating copyright, but that song plays
But Amazon
under
didn't catch that one.
Yeah, it plays under a commercial that the dog has created. And it is a complex moment that Savannah and I were talking about.
It.
But yeah.
I feel like I need to give more context before you start delving into that
I can get
tangent.
into China as
well. But I read that in the actual DVD version, which is what Rob and I have, that the music will play. However, upon putting the movie on, there is no music
totally
in it
silent.
at all. So the first 2 minutes of this movie is no sound at all, but videos of a dog walking around a park and ducks and birds flying around the park. That's literally all it is. And the dog has nobody around him. He's just walking and he's like laying under a table. He's laying under a tree. He's walking across a bridge.
It's like somebody's home movies of their pet.
Yes, but with no sound. None. Not a single, not even smidge of sound.
Not even the sound of like the dog or the bird.
No atmospheric
Zero sound.
No, there's no park sound.
When I was beginning my viewing of the movie, I thought I had to turn up the volume on the TV. I was like, what the hell is happening?
I also said, is this working? Is it working
properly? And I was like, yep, this is working properly. This is how it goes. Which is also hilarious because Ralph points this out where there's no music. But then you see a composer credit pop up as you're sitting in complete silence, which is the funniest thing ever. It's just amazing. Anyway, so then the dog starts talking and you can hear the echo of the room that the man is recording in.
And the microphone hiss has not been edited out.
And the microphone hisses.
Yeah.
So people can't hear the dog talk. It's all in the dog's head, essentially. I guess
Other
it's like his inner monologue.
Talk, we find out later, but
yes, that is a complicated issue in this movie.
And it's a single moment. It's one off. Like he just suddenly is talking to all these other dogs, but he hasn't done it the rest of the movie.
Yeah, what? Anyway, so the dog is like, man, I really want to have sex with a woman, essentially. Yep. And he lays down next to the water feature, as Rob calls it, and literally it's just like this
for no reason.
No reason. Like and why is he wandering around this park? Oh, and also one of the best lines too that I think Neil, you might have written down.
I jotted these all down.
Because he's got his best quotes at the beginning of the movie. You see videos of this man petting the dog, and the dog then says, "Hey, lay off, man. I'm not gay." And says it just like that.
Although there is an entire gay plot line in the movie. The movie does feel a bit homophobic, actually, when you think about it.
I think it is a little homophobic.
Which I guess that church in China might be on board with.
A little racist. But
against Chinese people?
No.
Oh. White people?
Black people.
Are there black people?
The main friend lady.
Oh, right. Yeah, she's supposed to be sort of like the whore.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see that. I see that trope as not a good thing.
Yes. I mean, we'll get into that in a second. Anyway, the movie, for many reasons, is problematic. Not just the fact that a woman wants to have sex with a dog.
Although that was the most salient point for me.
Yes. I mean, it's the biggest point in the movie. So the dog lays down next to the water pond. And he says to the water pond, "You laughing at me, water pond?" Even though the water pond hasn't talked yet. So I don't know why he said but he literally, "You talking to me? You laughing at me, water pond?" And then the water pond starts to bubble. And then there are like clip art sparkle effects that happen. And then another voiceover starts where a woman's voice is now going, "If you want to become human, you must find a girl." And the dog is like, "Girl?" I'm gonna just repeat this movie word for word for you. Anyway, she's like, "If she only loves you, you will become a man." And the dog is like, "Oh, hell yeah, I'm gonna go find a girl." And so he like runs around the park for a little bit until he runs into this like section of the park where it's not like it's a beach. It's just a grassy park. But these people, including the two the main character and her friend, are sunbathing in like bathing suits. Mm-hmm. And now this is another fun feature of the movie. The two main women in this movie are color coded. So the black woman who is the best friend, who is the whore.
She wears the bikini.
She wears the bikini.
Whereas the protagonist wears the one piece.
Yes. And the black woman wears all pink. Her name is Paula. Only ever wears pink. And then Lisa, who is the main character, only ever wears green. And not only that, her entire house is green.
Oh,
her
no.
car is green. Everything in her house is green. Literally.
Like the walls, even the walls are green?
The walls are green. Her furniture's green.
Here's
It's
a
a
question
nightmare.
for you. The dog's commentary on how green everything is that the voiceover artist ad-libbing?
Yes. And the director being like, "Yes, that's awesome."
She liked it, but she didn't write those lines.
I
It
couldn't
was just
tell.
him looking at all the screen shit and saying, "Why is everything always green?"
Yes. So I will throw this in too because I feel like it's important to say at the moment. So the actor asked the director, who sat with him and apparently told him and every other actor that he has talked to about the movie and like how she directed. She would tell the actors exactly how to say their lines. She would be like with the "I'm not gay" line, he would be like, "Oh, relax, dude, I'm not gay." And she'd be like, no, you have to say it like this: "I'm not gay." And he'd be like, "Okay," and like say it exactly how she said it. And apparently she would do that for every single line. And then another thing too is that she didn't speak very good English. And she wrote the movie, produced the movie, directed the movie, and
English. An English movie. A movie in English.
In English. But she doesn't know English very well. So a lot of the lines feel like broken English. But that's because like when the actors would try and like correct the grammar a little bit, she would be like, no, say it how it is on the paper. And they would be like, okay. So she essentially had full creative control over this movie. I mean, to the point where she was even correcting the actors on exactly how to like say their lines.
Well, a church in China paid for it. Who's going to check up on her? Right?
Yeah. No, I mean, I don't know. I was just saying, I don't know. This is her full creative artistic vision,
Yes,
is what I'm
there's
saying,
no
I
other
guess.
artists intervening.
No. So she told the actor who was like, "Why is everything green?" And she said in China, green symbolizes being horny.
I'm delighted.
But I Googled, what does the color green mean in China? And it was like purity.
Yeah.
And I was like, I didn't see the word horny at all. And I was like, okay.
Color is a complicated concept in China.
Oh, okay, fair enough. I have no right to tell this woman that green doesn't mean horny. So I'm not going to say that. But I did think that was a really interesting fact. So
That's why she chose it. I mean, because you could have chosen it for its other associations.
Yes,
sure.
no, but that is the specific reason she chose to make the main character in nothing but green.
But the character herself doesn't seem to want sex very badly until she gets with Dogman. Until that point, she seems pretty disinterested in any of the men she ends up dating.
Yes.
And it's her friend who's more inclined to even have sex with a dog.
Yes, actually. So the dog's running around, sees Lisa and her friend Paula sitting on a blanket, sunbathing. And he's like, "She is the one. I'm going to get that one to fall in love with me."
Isn't he like the old helpless act? It always works on him.
Yeah, he like rubs in the dirt and stuff.
Yeah, so
there's a whole montage.
But right before that, I just wanted to point out with us saying the Paula character is sort of racist, is the Paula character is being like, oh my god, look at those men over there, they're so hot, I'm gonna go talk to them, and then Lisa's all like, no, not while I'm here, and she's always like, and Paula's like, oh, you're just such a virgin, like, come on, it's not cool to be a virgin.
Right, virgin horror complex.
Yeah, it was. And that theme continues throughout the entire movie, especially because there's multiple scenes where Paula's like, man, I have sex with like 5 men every day. and Lisa's all like, oh no, I couldn't ever.
And it's the old Hollywood trope that Lisa is a fair-skinned blonde woman, but it's not the old Hollywood trope that her brunette friend is black. That's an amendment. We didn't have any black actors playing roles like that historically when Hollywood had the virgin horror complex in so many like the film noir and stuff. So in a way it's an innovation, but not for good.
No. De-evolution.
Yeah. It's doing nothing good for us.
So Lisa then prays to God. She goes, God, please give me a good man. And the dog says, you don't need a God, I'm right here. As he's sitting behind her.
This doesn't sound like very what the church would like. Just putting that out there.
Apparently the church did not see all of the final movie because the priest was like, turn this shit off.
Yeah.
Anyway, so she leaves. And the dog is like, I will not let a chick get away, which is an actual line in the movie. And he rubs himself in dirt and then somehow finds her car going to a gas station and stands in front of it. And like Neil says, he goes, oh, chicks love the helpless act, which also, stop calling women chicks. I fucking hate that shit. Fuck you.
They're ducks.
Yeah, call us ducks. Fuck you. I fucking hate that. But anyway, just a small tangent, because he calls her chick all the time at the beginning of the movie, and I'm like, fuck this dog. Okay? Not literally.
This dog.
The only time you have to say that.
Please don't fuck this dog.
We've already been there.
Whatever you do.
So she falls for the helpless act. She sees one of the cutest golden retrievers, which is also like one of the cutest breed of dog ever. Like, as if a golden retriever that looks as happy and as cute as this guy wouldn't have been adopted like the second he was born. Anyway, that's
just
another.
Wander in the park.
Just wandering in the park. That's why I assumed that he was a man who was turned into a dog, because he's a full-grown dog. So he's been living for a dog for at least 5 years.
He's just chilling.
I kind of
just chilling.
I find it funny that they chose golden retriever, as a golden retriever is like, they call people the golden retriever, and that's usually like the pure, right?
Yeah, he doesn't have golden retriever energy. This is an asshole energy.
But the human does. They casted the golden retriever of humans to play the actual human version of the dog.
And then dyed his hair to match.
I think it was a wig, honestly.
Really?
But I don't even know. But so she takes the dog to her house, and this is when the musical cues start happening. So
it's supposed to be like a montage where like she's showering the dog and the footage is sped up really quick.
Yes.
And you're like, what the fuck is going on here? Why is it sped up?
Yep, and there's no music playing. But the dog, throughout multiple parts in the movie, will just start singing randomly. And she apparently told the actor, the voice actor, can you sing this line? And he'd be like, okay. And she's like, just sing it, and I'll have my composer write something underneath of it. Which did not happen. So every time that the dog sings, there was not intended to be music underneath of it. And it was just the actor kind of like bullshitting. And so it's so good.
I mean, he was only paid like 3 cantaloupes and some wontons.
The dog does sing at random, that's true.
All the time. And one of the so he gets into her car and he's like, we're driving in a car, we're gonna go far, yeah. It's like what it sounds like.
It's like songs I make up with my kids, right? As you're just like doing stuff, putting on a diaper, hanging out in the house.
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
That's the kind of thing.
So she washes the dog off, and then she's like, okay, you have to leave, and throws the dog out. And then she goes to work. So now we're not following the dog anymore. We're following the human lady. She's at work. She gets hit on by her creepy boss. She then also gets hit on by her coworker, but she doesn't seem into it, but she says yes to going on a date with him. And then we get a date montage where it's complete silence and it's sped up footage of them eating at a restaurant. Then she goes home.
All the montages are sped up footage. I mean, we're using the word montage because that's literally what it's called. However, they're like no montages you've ever seen. They feel like fever dreams, or they feel like subliminal advertising almost, because the images flash by so fast.
Yes. Oh, and I guess I should say too, with the editing, this movie, especially in the very beginning, like I would say the first 20 minutes, each scene happens so quickly and is edited away so quickly that you can't even keep track of what's happening.
Yeah.
Because it's almost impossible to keep track of what's happening, because it's 1 second they're at the park and then now she's at the gas station and she's wearing completely different clothes and you're like, where is she? What day is this?
And the lines are also, I'm pretty sure they're just stacked on top of each other in between some of these scenes. So he'll be like, I cut myself shaving. I have a house in Sweden.
Oh,
yeah,
no.
He would. It's so weird. And then sometimes they'll even cut off his lines in the middle of a scene and stuff, and you can hear the editor, the editing of his line just stop, halt. and so she goes back home and the dog's sitting there and he's got a wound and he says, I cut myself shaving. and then he goes, shh, it worked, when she's letting him into the house. So she sticks some tape on his arm, which it doesn't look like bandages. And then I think
Literally
she
looks like masking tape.
It does. And then he helps her pick out an outfit for her date. Oh, I think I got it backwards. That she goes home. The dog helps her pick out clothes, and she's like, "Wow, you're so smart, dog. You can stay here and be my roommate," she says to the dog, which I don't think many people say that to their dogs. But
it's an odd concept.
They usually say they're my kids.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And
Also
but
an
no,
odd concept.
A roommate.
But
Way less odd than,
well, you didn't
partner.
give birth to that dog.
Yeah, but it's a little bit different than being you're my roommate.
That's
It's a more
endearing.
accurate.
If somebody says,
Yes, it's a more accurate reflection of the relationship. I understand.
She goes on the date with the guy, and then she comes back home, and then her mom calls her and is like, oh my God, you have a boyfriend now. And she's like, no, Mom, I don't. And then Paula calls and is like, oh my God, I'm sleeping with 5 guys. And Lisa's like, oh no, I'm not. And then and then she goes to work again. And now this guy shows up and he's staring at her creepily through the racks of the clothing department that she works in. And she sees him and she walks up to him and she's like, do you need help? And he's like, yes, I need to buy clothes for my wife. And she's like, oh, here's this dress, and he buys it. And then some woman who has a Romanian accent.
She seems like she may be affecting a Romani presence. Yes.
Not well, not good.
Somehow, yes.
And so she's talking
with fat fart noises.
Yeah, yes, that too. Talking in this terrible accent, being like, "Oh, that is Frank." That might not be his name. Either way, that one, he really likes you. And she was like, no, he has a wife. And she was like, no. He said that as a cover up, but he really likes you. I'm like, cover up for what? Anyway, what? So then she goes on a date with this guy. And because her mom calls her and is like, you should go on a date with 2 guys, or you should be dating 2 guys at once. What? And yeah. And so she goes on the date with this other guy, but he brings his mother to the date. And then the mother is like, if you want to marry my son, you need to get your tubes tied first, because he already has a kid and he's not allowed to have any more kids. So if you want to marry him, you need to do that. And she was like, oh, I don't know if I want to do that. She goes home.
She's rightfully a little hesitant.
Yes, I would say. And this was their first date, by the way.
Yeah, it's
that
a lot.
the mother
It's a
is
lot to
saying
take
this.
in. A lot to take in.
So she goes home. And
Why does she have to get her tubes tied, though? If
'Cause
he's
the
the
she's
one
not
that...
allowed to have any
the kid
kids.
is being
No.
raised with a special regimen of psychological and physical preparation to become an uber child.
Yeah.
But why is it on her?
Yeah, why is it on her?
Because if she's going to be the stepmom, she can't have her own kids because she'd be too busy worrying about her own kids and not the stepkid.
So she got to get her tubes tied because she's horny because she wears a lot of green.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah, it's that green.
Okay, so then she goes home and the dog's pouting because he's like, you should be trying to fuck me, not these other guys. But she can't hear the dog because the dog can't talk. But we hear the dog say these things. So then the first man that she dated shows up at her house, and he comes out to her saying, I want to marry you. And she's like, oh, okay. And then he's like, oh, no, but I don't want to marry you because I am attracted to you. I am not attracted to you. And she's like, what? And he says, I'm not attracted to you because I am gay. And but I want to marry you because my family can't know I'm gay. So so I will marry you. I will buy you whatever you want, and then I will have you artificially inseminated with my sperm, and we will have kids together, but I will not touch you. Don't worry. And then you can still fuck whoever you want.
Like a dog.
Like your dog. And she is like, I believe in true love, so no, I can't do this. And she turns him down. And then she's crying on the floor, and then her boss shows up. The people just walk into her house all the time.
She doesn't lock her door.
She doesn't lock her door.
Yeah.
So her boss, who is very drunk, walks in and then tries to rape her.
He does, yes.
And the dog saves her.
Mm-hmm. But then
she gets mad at the dog.
Because she gets fired. He fires her on the way out the door.
Yes.
And then she's mad that the dog got her fired. I believe. That's how I interpreted it.
No. Actually, no. Okay, because I also would have interpreted that way, but I was rewatching it without us two yapping.
Oh.
So I was able to actually hear a little bit more. And I say that because I was also yapping.
Yes,
so
we talked through the whole movie.
But
it's the only way we can add a soundtrack.
So she's like, she names the dog Prince. Oh, which is another amazing line. So when she agrees to let the dog stay as her roommate, she's like, oh, I got to give you a name. And the dog, who cannot talk to her, says, I already have a name. And she's like, I'm going to name you Prince. And he goes, I already have a name. It's Alvin Flang.
It's so specific.
Of all the names, that's unique.
That's a human name.
Yeah, I've heard of Alvin Flang.
Alvin Flang.
Alvin. I've met a few of them.
I'm Alvin Flang. But he would say it just like that.
It's a character in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles or something.
But and I guess
so she gets mad at the dog. Why does she get mad at the dog? You're saying it wasn't because she got fired.
Because she was happy with the dog, and she's like falling asleep on the couch, and then the dog is like, this is my chance to flirt with her.
Oh.
And so he goes up and he licks her face, which means that the dog is now actively trying to have sex with her as a dog. Mm-hmm. But this was the dog's choice. And then she pushes the dog very meanly away, because you know that the dog in real life was just trying to lick her, in the filming process of this. And she pushes the dog, and I was like, don't touch that poor golden retriever like that.
Yeah, he's a professional. He's a trained actor.
Anyway, she's like, get away. You are just like those other men. All I want to do is sleep, and even my dog's trying to fuck me. Like, she basically says that.
Because that's the conclusion that you draw from a dog licking your face.
Yeah.
That is what she says, other than, like, she doesn't say fuck me, but she does say
it's the idea.
that. And so then the dog leaves, and then she tries to kill herself by, like, ODing on drugs.
Yes, I forgot about this moment.
Yes, I swear to God.
True.
So she, like, takes a shit ton
a
of
bunch
drugs.
Of pills that she just has.
Yes.
It's doggy Prozac that
so
dog
much going on in this story.
Yeah, and that's another thing too, is like all this like drama is interspersed with the dog randomly saying really mean things to the woman, but the woman can't hear him. Right. Like, he's like, why is everything in here green? And then he's like, when he's picking out her outfit for her, he's like, here, this is tacky, you'll like this. Yeah. Shit like that. It's so weird. So anyway, she tries to kill herself. She's on the floor dying. The dog, for whatever reason, comes back, finds out she's dying, lays down in the middle of the street, and is like, here, follow me, and has someone, like Old Yeller style, follow him to her house. And then she goes to the hospital, and he's back out on the street. And then she comes home, and she's like, where is my dog? Even though she's wearing the exact same clothes that she was wearing when she, like, OD'd.
Yeah.
But
and they look fine. She looks great.
Yeah, she looks great.
For having her stomach pumped.
So then she runs around in the rain until she finds the dog. She somehow manages to find the dog in the park, and the dog has an umbrella for her. And then they're sitting there, and that's when the scene that Rob described, where she grabs the dog's face and she's like, I only ever want to be with you, Prince. I don't need a man. And then the voice actor for the dog goes, shebang!
Which I think should happen in all movies like this when a transformation occurs.
But then the dog, there's like the magical clip art sparkles again, and the dog is a human.
Yes.
And she's literally like holding on to this man who has no clothes on.
He's
he is
a naked
completely naked.
Golden Retriever man.
And she passes out. He's like, wake up. And then he tells her, like, I used to be a man in my past life and I was terrible to women, so I got turned into a dog this life, but I can be your man and I want to be your husband. And she's like, okay, cool. And then they go home. And
She does that easily.
She does. And they have sex. And it is the creepiest sex scene I've probably...
They make weird creaking sounds.
It's not just that. It's so the dog has like a towel on it. I should say the human, the
Prince.
dog man.
Mr. Alvin Fine. But
when he's a human, he only goes by Prince.
Yeah, he's
so
still Prince.
He's like,
because that was his past life name, was Alvin Fine.
what's Alvin Flang? So they're laying on the bed, and he starts like unbuttoning her clothes, and she's like laughing and then also moaning as he's like taking off her clothes.
She's so horny because of all the green.
But he's not even like touching her,
No,
but she's like
that doesn't
moaning
take
as
much.
if they're having sex. And then he turns the light off and it pans to like the window, and then you hear them both going like literal Sims when they have sex, going woo, woohoo. I'm not even joking.
There's also a creaking sound that they make with their mouths. So they go, something like
that
that.
too. They did something like that too, but it sounded like Sims when they woohoo, which is how Sims have sex. By the way,
Hopefully the Sims never adds to where you can, have a dog. Wait, is there werewolves Sim?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
So you can have sex with those guys.
yeah.
There you
A
go.
lot of people like to have sex with the werewolf Sims. I think they're annoying, but because they eat all your furniture. Anyway, so I don't put werewolves in my game. But okay, so then she's officially. So she has sex with the dog man, and then she wakes up. And it's a dog in her bed, and she freaks out, and she's like, what the fuck? And then the dog goes back to the water pond, and he's like, what the hell, man? You said I'd be a human. And the water pond becomes a total bitch and is like, no, you're only using her to become a human. You don't actually love her. And then we cut instantly to it being nighttime again, and he's wearing nothing but a towel, and she's still wearing the same exact clothes, and he's like, so is it the same night? It's not. It's a different night.
Flashback,
but
yeah.
it wasn't a flashback.
The water feature I thought was a flashback.
No, but it's not though, because
he's wearing a towel.
He
Yeah.
goes to the water pond and is like, what the hell, man? And she's like, you're using her. But so then we go around in circles for a little bit, where this is where the movie gets really boring,
It's quite tedious.
because she's like,
It hasn't been up to this point. I mean, the
No.
plot has kept moving in ways that are bizarre and difficult to follow, but now it gets incredibly tedious.
yes, where it's essentially over and over again. Lisa and the dog have sex at night. Then she gets upset when the dog becomes a dog during the day. And then she gets mad at the human the next day because she's like, why are you still turning into a dog? And he's like, I can't help it. And she's like, well, fix it.
And the mom and the Romani woman
Yeah,
are
and they get involved,
and they're trying to get her
and-
paired up with some guy, and they take her to a dance, which is weird.
And they
because
pay these
there's
three men
guys
to like
dance with her.
essentially accost and attack her, and they all start like
What?
pulling on her from different directions, being like, no, she like dancing more with me or
Yeah.
me. And the mom is all like, you have to date somebody. And then Lisa finally breaks down and is like, okay, I am dating somebody. And they're like, oh my god, you have to show me. And they're like, can we have brunch, because I have a plane ticket tomorrow.
It's okay, says the Romani woman. I'll cancel your reservation and make a new one.
And then they go to dinner together.
She's like everyone's
where-
personal secretary.
So then they go to dinner together, and the mom and the Romani woman are interrogating Prince, and then they all eat at the exact same time. It like cuts to absolute silence, and all four actors
overhead
move
shot.
the forks to
Oh,
their
yes.
mouths at the exact same time.
Overhead shot of them simultaneous, synchronized eating.
So then the water pond is like, okay, you obviously love her, but you need to help support her, because a husband's supposed to support the woman. And the dog is like, I'm a dog. How do I get a job? So he finds this dog talent agency that like saw him pick out clothes for her at the beginning of the movie. And they're like, yeah, you're going to be in our commercial. But the woman really doesn't like that. Lisa doesn't like that. but he does it behind her back. And so he's in a commercial where he fights ninjas.
To the sound of David Bowie's China Girl.
To the sound of David Bowie's China Girl. They fight. I mean, he is given the cash money, and then he pays for a dress, and then they get in a fight over that, and then they decide that they
stole the money.
Yes. And he's like, no, I didn't steal it. And then, oh my God, it's so...
How long is this movie again?
An hour and a half.
You can feel every minute of it.
That sounds dreadful.
I mean, it's interesting, the commercial, because it's written by a Chinese woman, because the ninja is Japanese, and ninja is traditionally Japanese, and Japanese people don't like Chinese people, and Chinese people don't like Japanese people, so she is kind of making a joke there. Then China Girl layered over top of it is so bizarre, because it's a song about British imperialism in China. David Bowie is sort of like commenting on that attitude, like the masculine attitude of conquering China. I don't know what any of it means. I don't think it means anything, but it's a bizarre... I think that she just wanted to jam in as much China stuff as she could.
She did.
Because all these characters are Chinese too. The manager, the talent scout.
Her first, the one that's gay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the Chinese woman who says have wild sex, make good kids.
Yes. So then she goes to a park in the middle of the day, and this Chinese woman is like, can you take a picture of me and my kids? And she's like, yeah, sure. And
then they stand in the way at the bottom of a sliding board while people are still trying to get down the sliding board.
And they're like hitting the kids who are trying to take a picture with their mom. It's so good. It's so fun. It's so funny. God, she's like, what's your secret for how adorable your kids are? And then the woman whispers into her ear, and Lisa smiles.
Yeah.
And then it cuts away, and we're like, what the fuck? And then it cuts to her and her dog man at night in the car, and they're about to have sex, and then she's like, I want to have kids with you. And he runs away from her because he's like, no, I don't want to have kids. And then she follows him into the woods and proceeds to try to have sex with him, and is like, do you know what this old Chinese woman told me? She said that the secret to good kids is good sex. And the dog is like, no, we can't have kids, because what if they're like me and you give birth to a dog? And she's like, you're so right. This is so sad. And then the next day she's over it again. And she's like, Prince, I want you to come to a work event with me at my boss's house, where my boss is going to promote me, but he only wants to promote me if you're there, for whatever reason.
That's weird.
And so he's like, but you know, he can't go out in the sun. And she's like, oh no, it's supposed to be cloudy
Overcast.
tomorrow.
Look, it's a cloudy day.
So you'll be fine. So the thing is, though, so they go to dinner. I mean, they go to the boss's house. It was obviously not a cloudy day when they filmed it, so they put like a darker filter over it to make it look darker. So then they're like hanging out by the pool after they eat dinner, and then of course the sun comes out, and the man turns into a dog, and then the woman Lisa falls into the pool and then starts to drown, and the dog has to go save her. But
it's a bizarre moment, because he turns into a dog, he hides under the table, and as if she can do anything about it, she lunges for him like she can jump across the pool.
But falls in the pool.
But even if she could lunge at him, what would she do? He's a dog.
Right.
She can't change that. It's not like you can catch him before he becomes a dog.
And her boss's son, who is like sitting with him at the table, is like, Dad, Prince just turned into a dog.
That's a great line.
And yeah, so then she starts to drown, and the dog is like pissed at her. He's like, how dare you make me come here? I hate you. Like, he calls her a pizza-faced cinder block.
Which makes no sense
she's
at
drowning?
all.
As she's drowning.
Oh, man.
She doesn't have bad skin. I don't know what that means.
Well, because like she can't swim or whatever, and I think cinder block is like she's sinking.
Yeah, well that makes sense. But the pizza thing, anyway.
So the pizza face thing is like at the very beginning of the movie, she's supposed to have a lot of acne, and apparently the voice actor even asked the woman about this too, like the director, and was like, "Why does she have so much acne? Like, why didn't you cover it up?" And she's like, "No, we added that because if you don't have sex, people who don't have sex always have a lot of acne."
Whoa, she's got one-track mind here. Mm-hmm. Anyhow.
So then that happens, and then the dog is like, I don't want to be your boyfriend or your husband anymore because you'll be happier without me, and he runs away. And then the water pond is like, you're crazy, man. You should be with the woman you love, because he goes back to the water pond again. And
because that's worked out so far.
So then the water pond, he's like, you're right, water pond, I do love Lisa. And so he's running back. He's like, Lisa, I love you. I'm coming. I'm going to be there. I love you so much. and then gets fucking hit by a car.
The dog dies.
I'm not even joking. The dog gets ran over by a car and dies. What?
No.
Please show me that's the
No,
ending.
it's not over yet. It should be, but it's not over yet.
So
The denouement.
That would be. Oh man.
Aristotle said, Neil, that he preferred a plot that ended tragically, but what he liked better was when a tragic ending was somehow redeemed.
And that's exactly what happens in this movie.
Go ahead, Savannah.
So the dog dies, and the woman Lisa never moves on.
No.
It literally says years later. ...
It doesn't say how many years.
It doesn't
but
say how many
It's got to
years.
be like 50 years.
It's got to be like 50 years because she's like a young, like 20-something-year-old. And then she's like got gray hair and she's still living in the exact same house with everything exactly the same.
But her makeup has hardly been done. She
No.
still looks exactly the same, but with a very gray wig and like
Yes.
some lines maybe drawn
And
on
she
her
like
face.
crouches a little bit more and
Yeah.
speaks very softly.
There's been very little effort to Benjamin Button her.
So she puts her house up for rent. And then who shows up? Paula, with her line of grandchildren
Paula,
that she
who
has.
also looks exactly the same, except now has gray streaks in her hair.
Yes, instead of pink.
Right.
But they're still both wearing pink and green. But she doesn't have pink in her hair anymore. Oh, because I forgot to mention that Paula got really mad at Lisa for having Prince be her boyfriend.
Yeah,
and
Paula
like
found out. She
leaves
got real miffed. Ran out. We don't know why.
because she wasn't the virgin that she thought she was.
Yeah, she lied. She didn't tell her you had a boyfriend.
It was so weird.
It's
Anyway,
very strange because she came to her house to shower in the middle of the night. It was all very strange.
that was another weird
Yeah.
thing. Okay,
How many
anyway.
weird things are in this thing?
Sorry, we gotta get this done. 'Cause
I know. I'm
Evangeline,
sorry.
I think the
subjected
better
people
question
with
is,
enough of
how
this
many
plot.
normal, like, solid above-board things are in this movie?
Very
What do they
few.
do right?
None.
Very few.
None. No one in this movie acts like a real person whatsoever.
No. They do act like NPCs, is what I said to
Yes,
Savannah. They act like
and kind of like
non-playable characters.
Sims. This is
Yeah.
like a plot of a Sims, like a modded Sims game, where you can have sex with dogs.
So the old ladies have this scrapbook. They remember the days.
Yes.
They look at pictures of Prince,
Yeah,
which
so
were
like
also all
okay,
over the walls.
Let's say too that like Paula is apparently looking to rent this house that used to be her best friend's house before she broke up with her best friend, and her best friend is still living in there, and they apparently haven't seen each other since they broke up, and she brings 5 grandchildren to look at this house. Anyway, that I just
Who all
wanted to add that.
disappear for a very long time so they can look at
While they
scrapbooks and have like a
scrapbook.
sleepover.
And Lisa tells Paula about everything, and they're like, oh no, and Lisa's like, he'll be reincarnated and he'll come back to me and he'll be our age, and Paula's like, no bitch, you're stupid, because if he was reincarnated he would be way younger than us because he would be like born when we were like 20 years
Right,
old.
Yeah. So he'd be 20 years younger.
Yeah, and then Lisa's like, oh no, I didn't think about that. And she starts crying and she like takes her house off for rent or whatever. And then who walks in the door? Oh my God, it's Prince. He was reincarnated into the exact same body as when he was a human being.
Very
No.
convenient. Yes,
And,
no. Alvin Fang has returned.
Alvin Flying. And so he's like, but he's young. And he's like, I run a dog training business and I live really well and I love you and we should get married. And she's like, yes. And then a light flashes and he magically becomes old.
Yes.
So they are now both
They're
the
both old.
same age.
Yes.
And then
This is so circuitous now that I think of it. Go ahead.
and then there's a scene with no music.
There's never been any music except for a brief 20-second David Bowie clip.
And the dog singing.
Yes, I don't know if that qualifies.
So then it's like the camera's spinning around them as they're like under a wedding arch in wedding outfits getting married. And then the magical confetti comes back. And then they're both no longer old and they are young again.
Yes.
And then it freeze frames and says the end.
So to rephrase here, the magic made him as old as her so that the magic could then make both of them not old anymore, rather than simply not making her old in the first place and leaving him the same age.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Of course. Of course it did.
Makes
The water
so much
pond.
sense.
The water feature is not to be trusted with any of this
It's
magical
certainly a
dealings.
deity, but it's not a very bright
It's a
deity.
trickster. It's a trickster, that water
you
feature.
laughing at me, water pond?
Honestly, I'm
Yes,
just most
we all-
curious
yes.
about the water feature because that's the
watch
real story.
Watch the movie. It
It's
doesn't
the real
make any
protagonist
sense.
is the water feature and the ducks.
It does flash the same two ducks, a white duck and a brown duck swimming next to each other.
It's a mallard duck. The mallard would be the male, but I believe the white duck symbolizes the white man, and the mallard duck symbolizes the female.
Oh.
But it's a male mallard. Anyway.
But yeah, that's how the movie ends. So happy ending.
So happy.
Yes.
When the dog got ran over, I thought I was going to die.
It was really shocking.
It's like out of nowhere, too. The plot all of a sudden decides it wants to advance itself and then end within 5 minutes of killing the dog.
Does it just like show the dog crossing the street and cut to black with a car?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, it's literally like, so the dog is running across the street and then you hear a skirt and then you flash to Lisa who looks horrified and then it flashes to the dog that has like jelly on its head.
It's all made up. Yeah, there's black marks
Dog had to
on the
get
dog.
jelly in his head.
I really love you, honey. And then
At least he didn't call her chick.
Yes,
it got
it
serious
does.
at the end there.
Oh my god, it's just so good. And so what's so interesting about the voice actor's portrayal of this is that he's making fun of the movie because he's the only one who's able to watch the movie and act in it at the same time. And so when you listen to the movie and his lines, it's very clear that he is making fun of this movie, which is part of the reason why it's so entertaining to watch, at least the first part, because once he becomes a human, it gets really boring. But I also do want to say, too, that apparently the main woman and the guy who plays the human version of Prince, because it's not the same guy, it's a completely separate actor who is very, very muscular and I swear to God looks like a golden retriever.
A little bit.
I swear to God, he is the golden retriever.
Give it away now. What happens with the guy?
Oh, sorry, I got distracted. They met on this movie and fell in love and got married and have a kid and have quit the industry and now just live together and are in love.
Regular people.
Hey, Mom. Hey, Dad. Where did you two meet? Well, it all began with a little dog and a little lady.
That is Love on a Leash. If you do want to watch it, I would say stop watching like after the first night of him becoming a dog.
You pretty much
good.
got all you need there.
You don't need to watch anything else.
I think if I watched this, I would have nightmares. I think I actually would.
It's very strange, and I tried to make sense of the Chineseness of it because it's a Chinese woman and a Chinese church that funded a movie about two white people, one of whom is a dog, but becomes a white person, and they're surrounded by other Chinese American characters who are constantly helping them or otherwise intervening in their story. I don't know what any of that means. The theme of China runs throughout the movie.
Yeah.
And
like she has Chinese art in her house and then like at one point the dog tries to take her to like a Chinese museum but isn't allowed in because he's a dog.
Can't get in, yeah. Imagine that. But
and that's when he talks to all the other dogs. And then not only that, but we as audience members also hear the other dogs talk.
For the first time,
for
there's
the
these other
first
voiceover
time and only
actors.
time in the whole movie.
Who those voiceover actors are probably just the people who are standing around at the time. Yeah.
That's how we do our podcast.
It's not really saying anything about China. It's not really saying anything about anything at all. But the accidental messages are all through this. It's just a bizarre cultural product.
And that's what makes this movie so interesting and entertaining is that like every aspect of it is bad. Like there isn't necessarily a redeemable quality to it. It's just like the perfect storm of bad, but it's like it's a charming sort of bad because you can tell that this woman was very passionate about making this movie. I mean, like she lied to the fucking church.
Yeah, she wanted to get this made.
Yeah, and
because of the fantasy. It's the fantasy.
She must. Maybe I shouldn't say that.
If you have to compare this movie to The Room, who's coming in first in terms of quality?
Tommy Wiseau obviously had more money. So camera-wise, The Room wins. However, I think that I don't know. It's hard.
Toss-up.
Yeah. It is a toss-up. I would argue that The Room is more enjoyable all the way through. Like, I feel like I have fun watching that movie from start to finish, whereas this one, once the guy became a human and was more so a human than dog, I got bored.
And it becomes sometimes very difficult to figure out what the hell is happening
Yes,
with the
because it
mother
just
and
keeps-
the Romani woman. We don't know really what they're doing or why they're doing
It just keeps, and the editing is just so back and forth that you literally, like, I had a headache after watching this movie.
It's too confusing to understand to even be able too bad to be good.
The fact that you had to watch it twice just says enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I did actually pick up more of the actual plot of the second time through, but it is so unbelievably strange that I do almost recommend you watching like the first like half an hour and nothing else.
If you
Or
can
go
get
watch,
your hands on
Go
it.
watch Ralph's video on
There
it.
you go.
That's all you need. Ralph covers the best parts of the movie.
Check out the trailer for it.
Yes, check out the trailer. The golden retriever is the cutest dog I've ever seen. And yeah,
That's what we have to say about that here on Strange Ride.
thanks for riding along with us. Please watch your step as you exit and remember to take all personal belongings with you. Bag full of homemade wontons.
Is he
love a
that
wonton.
lazy that he couldn't just go to the store and get 3 cantaloupes and buy some wontons?
It's not about being lazy.
It's
That's
more he would
what
do the work for
she's-
anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, that was what she was offering. She wasn't offering money. She was offering a bag, 2 bags, one with 3 cantaloupes and the other with wontons.
That's
filled with wontons.
That's almost a threat. Like, what happens if I don't accept the role? This woman isn't going to pay me. She has 3 cantaloupes, some possibly very hot homemade wontons.
She's
What's going to happen?
bludgeon you and then scald you.
So,
Did you guys hear about the Boeing engineer who got fucked to death by a horse?
what?
I'm doing the audio test right now, so this is actually fine.
Yeah.
I'm just making sure all the mics are good.
The-
Proceed.
I was
There
like,
was a
I mean,
tell
Boeing
me
engi-
more.
There was a Boeing engineer who, making his wealth, decided enough is enough. I've got my bank. I'm gonna fuck a horse. Twice. He survived the first time. This is the second time he fucked the horse, and that horse fucked him to death.
I mean, inevitably, right?
A
Yeah.
Boeing engineer got fucked to death by a horse.
what does this say? Fuck
Because of
me once,
slot.
shame
Right,
on
make
you.
sure you talk into this guy.
Because of J Schlott, I know that a Boeing engineer got fucked to death by a equine.
horse.
Isn't it fuck me once, shame on you,
Equine-
fuck me twice, shame on
Shame on the horse.
Shame on
Fuck
the
me twice, shame on the horse.
But okay, if it's bestiality,
No.
get fucked by a horse once, shame on me. Get fucked by a horse twice, shame on me again.
That's how bestiality works. Yeah.
Oh my god.
All right, here we go.
We're
Let's
already
do
on
this
fire.
thing. Yes. Strange Ride.